Hunter x Hunter is finally back with another batch of chapters after a 2-year hiatus. And, man, a pretty dang good chapter that we start off with after a 2-year break from Togashi. Like, okay, pretty good in terms of information, and also just Kurapika seemingly managing to piece together what exactly the finer details of the succession contest actually is and how it came to be, and just why it is the way that it is through the rules of Nen with how binding binding vows with Nen contracts and restrictions through just how the succession contest is fully planned out. I'll get into that whenever I get into that section of the chapter, which is towards the end of it. But even then, this is a pretty good catch-up chapter for like everything that's going on, and another reminder as to what's going on with all these different characters. We do jump back in time a couple of hours from the end of chapter 410, which was when Benjamin declared martial law, Hulkenberg's funeral happened, and Hulkenberg was officially dead. Now, obviously, in this chapter, he is already dead, but we do get some reestablishments of important information, as well as setting up stuff for more stuff with Kurapika's Nen class, with the different factions for the princess's bodyguards and attendants that are in place for his Nen class. So we got a couple things to get into, and another big bombshell at the end of the chapter, which could have some pretty interesting implications going forward. So yeah, that's going to be a pretty cool thing. But before we jump into this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps and shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel, and shows you want to see more. Obviously, I'm doing the face cam thing for the Hunter x Hunter reviews for right now, because I do not want to risk the copyright lords of Shueisha again, because when I first started talking about Hunter x Hunter 4 years ago, when it was chapter 390 to 400, a lot of those videos ended up getting copyright struck, so that's why I'm doing the face cam stuff to kind of compensate for that and to avoid the copyright content for as long as possible. But please stay with me with the face cam. I know some people don't like it, but I gotta do stuff to avoid the copyrights if I'm going to talk about Hunter x Hunter, and I can't keep using the anime all the time with scenes with characters that literally aren't in the anime. So there's we got stuff to talk about. But anyway, let's just jump into chapter 411 of Hunter x Hunter. Aptly titled Announcement, and the cover image is of Saradnik holding the head that is in his private collection. And people have had this theory for a long time that the head is one of Kurapika's childhood friends. And I genuinely think Togashi knows now that people have this theory, and he's just laying it on thick that maybe that he's confirming that that's the case for all we know. I'm not sure. But also, it is haunting to have freaking Saradnik be presented in such a divine manner with the cover image, with how it is. Because the translation of the image of the word saying, presiding over life and death with solemnity. And yeah, this is disturbing, because I genuinely believe this is what how Saradnik can perceive himself as, or the people that are around him. Though we don't get caught back up with the stuff with Morena in her Mafia faction, as well as what happened with the negotiation game with Borkson. So that stuff we're going to have to get back into later. So we cut into like the announcement, stuff like that, with Hulkenberg being dead, and we have Might, who's being controlled by Hulkenberg's actual soul due to his Nen ability, is telling Benjamin all the crucial information at this point of what needs to be said, like Hulkenberg's funeral being presided by the Justice Department, and that he'll head back once everything's set in stone. We got that, and a bit of a reminder that Might is being controlled by Hulkenberg's consciousness for a bit, so we got stuff with that. Then we cut back to Melody and Fugetsu talking with, damn, I keep forgetting his name, Kaiser. His name is Kaiser. They're going over everything that's happening with Fugetsu, and because last we know of, she's being haunted by a bunch of what seems to be vengeful spirits, and her health is constantly deteriorating. So they're just effectively seeing how her health is, because they're planning an assassination for Prince Luzris, who they believe is the one responsible for Fugetsu's condition. So, like, genuinely, it is an interesting thing to see Melody just take part. Basically, what's in an assassination attempt. And they don't even know for sure if Luzris is the one responsible. So, we still don't know who's responsible for Fugetsu's condition, and we're just catching up with the fact that they are just trying to find out the right timing for what they're going to do. Also, a pretty nice piece of information that Kacho's Nen Biscacho is seemingly partly responsible, perhaps, for Fugetsu's condition, as she is technically constantly draining her Nen potential from how it goes. So that might also take into account why she's feeling so weak over the last couple of days. So we got stuff to think about when it comes to Fugetsu's condition, and that's another plot point we got to keep in mind on. We then cut to one of Camilla's have-nots and head guards, as she essentially goes and does some pretty impressive makeup for just a massive makeover, changing her entire appearance to look more like, so she can dress up as a maid to kind of look like an unassuming maid, so that she can go into Kurapika's Nen class, so that she can get close enough to Prince Wolbo to activate her Nen curse. And close proximity could end up like instantly killing Prince Wolbo. Because, like, again, as a reminder for people, because I had to double check on some stuff. Camilla has a whole bunch of personnel called the have-nots, people that have been like dejected or not considered like people from Kakian society. She has for Nen curses for specific princes, and once the Nen curse is done, that person will die. That's kind of the exchange for how that's done, but also to be fueled by immense hatred. So she's got to go in to Wolbo's room, completely hide her bloodlust in order to be able to get close enough to Wolbo and then unleash that curse onto Wolbo to instantly kill him. That's a tall order, especially considering that Kurapika's there and a whole bunch of people there that are going to learn Nen and also know Nen. So like the second they feel something is off, or like the second they feel something with Nen is happening towards Wolbo, they're going to act. So that's going to be interesting to think about. But that's really for the instant death. She does say that if it's like from the other side of from a different room, if they're just close by from a different room, it could take about a week before the curse takes full effect. So for all we know, like a Nen exorcist could like fully just remove that. But even then, that's not great. But it would at least give them time to like figure out what's going on with Wolbo, if that's the case. If I am remembering how the Nen curses work, like the way it is, plus with what she's describing right now. That aside, we get our first page with no text in this chapter, which is great, always great. Just to show we are back in room 1014 with Kurapika's Nen class, and we get a nice double-page spread, which is effectively just reestablishing for some characters, especially two characters from Prince Benjamin's faction that are spying on Kurapika through the Nen classes. As Kurapika makes the announcement that now that there are more people here in the Nen class, he's going to make two different groups, one that are beginners and one that are currently already access to Nen through the Nen class. And he's still giving the guarantee of being able to awaken people's Nen capabilities within 2 weeks. So that is another piece of information that we're going to get at. And we do get for one of Benjamin's men, I think is Furikov, I think his name is. I double checked. I'm pretty sure that's the character. Please double check me because I have to keep going back and forth between the wiki pages so you can keep track of some characters' names. But he's talking to Bobby Mina about this entire situation. And obviously Bobby Mina is telling for Furikov to go to beginner's class despite him already knowing about Nen. But Kurapika also gives some pretty cool, interesting information for how he's planning to drag out the whole competition. The princes survive and make the succession contest last as long as possible to the end of the Black Whale's voyage to the continent that they're going to. He wants to have people learn one of the 4 principles per week so they can fully master them within a week. That way, that's at least a month of training, and they got a little over a month and a half before they reach it. So Kurapika is going to try and extend this as long as possible. But something that Furikov does mention that this is an impressive thing to do because usually it takes a long time to learn even one of the first few principles of Nen, but to awaken it through like an attack could very well make it possible. And obviously this goes into effect that it is going to more or less fully cement the stalemate that Kurapika is trying to get at, because within a month, with all of these different characters like learning from him, they'll basically be full-blown Nen users. So that makes each of the prince's factions a lot more cautious to act in any regard, because a lot of their personal guards are going to know Nen and are most likely going to develop over the course of time their own Nen abilities. So we got stuff keeping everyone in check. So the longer this goes on, the longer the succession contest is just going to be like stuck in place. So we gotta see how things are gonna progress along. And we still got silent majority going on. And this is actually something that's brought up in this chapter again. As we get a couple of pages just reintroducing us introducing us to new characters, some more attendants and personal guards from all the other princes, and especially those that were sent by some of the high-ranking queens for the Nen class. And we got one from the 13th prince, whose name is Bellarant. And one thing he does mention is kind of silent majority, because he mentions a girl with a mask. So I believe he did see silent majority during the last few murders. So we still got that factor in there while Kurapika's Nen class is going on. Now there's more people around, so that's also going to make like narrowing things down harder for Kurapika in a way, since there's going to be more people, because we still had no idea if silent majority was someone that was even in the room. Though we know that he probably doesn't know that that's going to be the case. So this just makes things a bit more difficult when silent majority pops its really ominous head again. Now something that is brought up by Luzdra's guards is that the ability to learn Nen is going to greatly affect who gets what assignments if power is restructured with whoever becomes king. So with Luzdra's just standing by until the Mafia factions finish what they're doing, they're definitely going to take advantage of this opportunity. So that's an interesting and honestly pretty rational way to look about things with the situation that's in hand. Especially since they also want to keep an eye on the Second Prince Camilla's guards and personnel that are now entering the class now, since they've neglected to be part of it for a while now. Now we also get a bit more of just some of the other guards, like one of Zhang Lei's men, basically going over how having more people here could end up taking away from other princes and their security. Since Kurapika also is inviting all of the princes and their queens to send at least one additional guard with the Nen class, despite him doing the beginner and current courses that he decided to split everyone into. Basically, a lot of them just essentially say no. We mainly get Zhang Lei's guard saying this, and Zhang Lei saying it himself, but also saying that with how Prince Benjamin is probably on guard, and that it's best not to give any impression to the guards that Benjamin sent over to the class to begin to think that Zhang Lei's people are kind of in league for the time being with Kurapika and Prince Wobble, so it's best to kind of, keep things a bit low-key. Also, just going back through this to keep things in order, the maid's name is Sarahel. The head of the guard for Prince Camilla is named Sarahel, and in this section, she's effectively going over the fact that if she can get her hands on an item of Prince Wobble's, it'll make the curse a lot more effective and a lot more direct. So that is something else that we have to keep an eye on for Sarahel. Now, Kurapika is kind of internal monologue, going over the fact that Hulkenberg is dead, and it is a literal shame, and kind of shoots him in the foot, because he wanted to form an alliance with Hulkenberg to kind of bolster the idea of a stalemate, since Hulkenberg has been publicly against a succession contest the entire time, but also the fact that with Hulkenberg dead, the lower-ranking princes are now more likely to get assassinated by the higher-ranking princes and their guards at this point, due to the fact that Hulkenberg was protecting the lower-ranking princes, but now that he's dead, all of a sudden, that shield is kind of keeping them from becoming targets. So now it's going to be a lot easier for these other assassins to find a way to kill all the other princes that are below the higher-ranking ones. So that's going to be a lot. We also get two of the bodyguards from Sir Radnik. Now, this is interesting, because this one here, we got a new character thrown in here. We don't get their name, but they're there as a stand-in for Borkson, because around this time is when Borkson is effectively abducted by Morena's people, and then in a little bit, we're going to get the negotiation game that we got in the last batch of chapters. So what is said by the other guard is basically saying, hey, don't die, because two of our guys died during the last few classes, so we don't want anything to go wrong and throw this whole place into chaos. Which, that would really screw things up at this point. And also, just as Kurapika, just as what I was saying earlier with the fact that Hulkenberg's dead, more and more people are going to be more likely to kill the lower-ranking princes, one of the other bodyguards there from the 7th Prince, Dadasu, is literally basically saying, are we really just going to sit here and only learn Nen the entire time? Wouldn't it be simpler if we just killed the 14th prince? It's a baby. It'd be over in a second. Why do we have to pretend to be all buddy-buddy like this? And this is most likely the mentality that some of the other guards are going to have, or perhaps some of the princes or queens, due to the fact of the nature of the succession contest and the fact that there are so many people in a room where the youngest prince with the least power and the least sense of protection, at least to their knowledge, is sitting right there, open season. Like, it is a shockingly cruel way to look at things. Unfortunately, that's how the succession contest is like. But Kurapika also begins to think about, the Snake Charmer, the Silent Majority, that Nen ability that killed two of Sarangnic's people. And he basically goes over what Sarangnic's people also ended up saying with no more Sarangnic's people dying, because of the last two being Sarangnic's people. It is wondering if another person dies from Sarangnic's group in this class, Sarangnic has all grounds to basically take it to court for the Kaking Justice Department, and they'd be in the same room, and it'd make things a lot more difficult at this point. And he's wondering if Sarangnic would appear in person for this. Now, I'm not sure how things would go, but it could lead to Kurapika or other guards, or maybe even Wobble or Queen Oito getting put to death potentially for murder of these people that were sent by higher-ranking princes, people who have more authority and power over them. So that could also be it. Now, also, we do have to remember that Kurapika initially wanted to be Sarangnic's guard, so that he can be able to overpower him potentially and take back the rest of the Scarlet Eyes from his clan. While Kurapika does want to protect Queen Oito and Wobble now, he made a promise, and he's not going to let a baby die in a literal bloodbath of a war between royal factions. There's the possibility of him getting to Sarangnic, and while Kurapika's sense of morality and just his good nature is why he is sticking with Wobble and Queen Oito, he still is most definitely going to want to face Sarangnic at some point in person for the rest of the Scarlet Eyes and his friend Pyro's head. Something that he doesn't know, but once he finds out, fuck all his other promises, he's going to go and try and kill Sarangnic right there on the spot. But that's going to be an interesting thing to think about. But either way, Silent Majority is still around, and we have no idea if they're going to go after another of Sarangnic's men or a different prince's guard that's there to learn Nen. Who knows? That is the underlying tension of this class right now, outside of the political tension that's around at this point. Something interesting happens. Another guard that apparently was a personal guard of the Queen that was sent to be assigned to Zhang Lei just says, hey, I'm going to go into the introductory class, and basically just gives out his information effectively of whose guard he is and stuff like that. And effectively, he wants to try and sow a bit of deceit, ruin the good relationship that some of the princes have, so that he can kind of come out on top in a sense of information warfare. Since he is under the second queen, he is going to have some information with him that could help sway the succession contest if he gets in the good graces of Kurapika and begins to learn some information by just being open and honest with this particular piece of information. And also wants to screw over the other bodyguard that he was with, because it seemed like this guy was making some backroom deals to him while he kept his mouth shut about knowing Nen. So, there's stuff going on. But Kurapika actually takes advantage of the broken tension, the tension that's arising right now, to lay out some very vital information about the succession contest, and also the true purpose of his Nen classes. He literally just flat out says, okay, you guys are here to kill each other for the succession contest. This Nen class is meant to kind of alter the way that the succession contest is going to be laid out. He's going to give us some information on the succession contest, and in fact, he actually says flat out, this information isn't really going to fully benefit anybody, but he's just going to explain it right now, considering with the situation, it's probably best to just lay it out on the table for everyone to hear. So Kurapika begins to break down the succession contest meant for one prince to come out on top here in the Black Whale to be the next ruler of the Kaking. But he lays out the fact that the very key choice of words is "want to survive" is key point of the succession contest. And also to why would we go to such lengths? He basically breaks down that this whole ritual for the succession contest comes down to the fact that they want to have a leader that can lead 1 billion people and can make Kaking prosper. And through this explanation, we actually get a pretty accurate depiction of the current king, Nasabi, as being of energy, like looking down at all of Kakin as a benevolent ruler, showcasing that whoever wins the succession contest, again, will be king, but also gain the great power and knowledge to become a great king. And basically says that the succession contest is basically brought together by limitations and rules. By vows and limitations, the rules of the succession contest are formed and bring forth like a leadership ability that whoever comes out on top, the sole survivor of this, will basically gain the ability to fully lead the country and just ensure the prosperity of Kakin. Since Nen literally is just that insane when you take it into consideration when it comes to all the limitations and restrictions to like put into an ability that can make it a lot more powerful. He goes on to say that the resolve to sacrifice your own bloodline is literally one of the biggest one of the big things when it comes to Nen, as you're offering something of great risk in exchange for the great power. And then you have the resolve to go through this and the faith to go for it. And so he kind of breaks down 4 distinct like rituals that effectively also make up the succession contest that could be used for like Nen restrictions and vows. So I'm going to break that down really quick. There's a ritual that's a prayer to the gods. There's the ritual of offering to the gods. There's the ritual of the consolation of the spirits and souls of the dead. And there's the ritual that reigns over government and religion, politics carried out by priests. And so bringing down each of them individually, we have this. Effectively, praying for the prosperity of the nation and making a solemn vow is for the prayer of the gods. For the offering to the gods, it's making sacrifices of one's bloodline as proof of resolve. So the ceremony as consolation for the souls and spirits of the dead goes into gathering those who died during the process of succession in one location to create spiritual focal point. Then there is the religion and government, the reign of religion and government, politics carried out by priests. It's governing the nation's affairs by using immense power gathered through the ritual ceremony in and of itself. So to make this relatively simple, because I could actually probably make a whole 10 to 15 minute video just going over everything in greater detail, effectively, what KURAPIKA is saying is that the 4 key rituals that make up the succession contest are effectively, the intention is the prayer to have the prosperity of Kakin through the surviving heir, the surviving prince to be king. The sacrifice is of the bloodline of, well, the royal family of Kakin, all the princes. That is one of the risks for it and the price to be paid for that. Then you have gathering all those who died in one place. We've actually seen this room where King Naspi has been keeping the deceased princes' bodies in this weird room that could be kind of sci-fi in a way, it looks like. So that is like the focal point seemingly that Naspi is setting things up in, to kind of have the princes go there to kind of gather their bodies as an additional sacrifice, perhaps. And lastly, effectively the outcome of it all. Using the gathered power from the literal ritual will lead to the government, the governing of the nation through the king. So putting all these steps together, whoever ends up gaining the powers of the leadership ability from the succession contest gains all the power to be basically the best king for their nation. And then without all of these things, these limitations and keys for the ritual ceremony, the ability can be transferred, and the awakening of guardian spirit beasts and the culmination to create a guardian spirit beast for the king that can protect them and give them the power to govern over the nation cannot happen. And therein lies the key to the truth of the succession contest. Since it's going to take 2 months for the Black Whale to reach the continent that they need to get to, all the princes need to be whittled down to a single survivor within that time. But the time limit ends up adding something else towards it. Because right now, we still have a month and a half left for the voyage. It's hard to believe that everything that's happened up until this point in HunterXHunter has been only 2 weeks, but hey, we got a long way to go now. But anyway, yeah, at the festival, once we land, that is when the next king will be announced. The sole survivor over a bloody battle for succession, thanks to the rules and restrictions and limitations placed upon there for the ceremony of the succession contest. And it is very crucial that the sole survivor is there at the end of the Black Whale voyage, because the voyage is the battleground. If there is no actual survivor, one single survivor, once the Black Whale comes out, that's the time limit. Once the time limit's up, if there's no single survivor, then the contest ends and there won't be a new king crowned. And the price to be paid for this would be that the royal family would fall from power. And that shocks everybody in the room. And that ends up being something like, hey, why would the family fall from power? Wouldn't the more equivalent way to be, hey, the whole royal family dies as a result of the vow basically being broken. The rules of the succession contest that was set up through the vows and restrictions for this contest would be shattered, and so wouldn't the lives of everybody involved be null and void? Well, it's because of the ability to gather this alive. By making us give that option, that idea of hope to make it out of the succession contest with our lives, and there being more than one survivor, that makes the risk worth the reward. Because if they were effectively had the option of like losing that, it'd effectively be coercion, because the idea of this life or death vow being placed on, like the moment you enter the competition within this time frame, it ends up increasing the risk of the Nen vow that is placed within here. If it was done another way, like they all die either way, that's more so towards coercion. That is fully forcing them to kill each other in a way, and thus it wouldn't really have the same effect. It could have, in fact, have the opposite and won't be as clear and tight. Giving the risk that the succession contest could lead to multiple survivors and not everybody dies, thus breaks down the royal family. They lose their influence, their power, everything, and then it ends up just kind of ruins the entire thing, leading to the fall of the royal family and perhaps the fall of the Kakin Empire. So that in and of itself, based off of, the restrictions and everything, is kind of equivalent. You give that sense of hope and way to get out of there, but that is the inherent risk, because then there's no king crowned, and if there's no king crowned, everything falls apart. And that is actually pretty damn genius. Yeah, that is an insane thing when it comes to this Nen ability. Again, this is all Kurapika's understanding of the succession contest right now. This might not even be all the information in regards to the creation of the succession contest, the Nen involved, the rules, restrictions. There could be more stuff that we don't know about. This is just Kurapika coming to this conclusion after 2 weeks on the Black Whale, seeing everything and getting all the information he could possibly get about the succession contest, the Nen beasts, and the fact that it started once the Black Whale left from its voyage. That is the information that Kurapika has gathered and has concluded with his knowledge of Nen. Yeah, there might be more that we don't even fully know yet, and that is interesting to think about, because this is just off of one guy's interpretation and guess out of everything. Kurapika's intelligent. He probably did not think of everything. Now, if this is everything, this is very massive information, and good on Kurapika for guessing all that. But that aside, that is very important information to give the opposition, because by saying that they need to kill everybody in order for the royal family to prosper and for their respective prince to get into power, you're literally goading them into killing each other. That is a massive risk. But there's one more bombshell that Kurapika in this gamble could pay off or could blow up in his face. And it's one big announcement that he makes to everybody. That apparently, Prince Bulbul is no longer eligible, or isn't eligible, to truly take place in the succession contest. And that bombshell ends the chapter as we go into Queen Oito's room as she is staring despairingly at the wall. And that ends the chapter. What could that mean? Well, here's the thing. Some people have thought that this means that Bulbul is beyond Netero's daughter. That's not going to be the case, because as part of the rules of the succession contest, you have to be the child of a legal queen of the Kakin Empire. You don't have to be King Nasubi's child in order to take place. No, you have to be one of the legal queen's children in order to be king of Kakin, which is also why Beyond Netero has impregnated so many people to take part in the succession contest to be close to every prince, but also, most likely one of the princes is one of Beyond Netero's kids. So, with that in place, he probably wants to ensure that one of his kids ends up being the next king in Kakin. His child, being one of the princes, would not disqualify them. However, if Queen Oito isn't actually a legal queen, then that makes Bulbul ineligible, which means there is nothing for them to gain from Bulbul being killed. And not only that, they have no reason to target Kurapika and anybody else there. And another option could also be that this isn't the real Queen Oito here, or Queen Oito never had a kid, and Bulbul might be adopted, or from somebody else, took her in as her own, and could just end up being someone else's, an illegitimate child or whatever the heck. Either that or a surrogate kid, who knows? There are different possibilities. for Wobble not to be eligible. Now, this could also just be Kurapika lying out of his ass right now to kind of either A, trick people into thinking that Wobble isn't eligible to kind of keep him safe, but perhaps also to goad out silent majority or other prince's bodyguards into trying to do something rash. This is a big play by Kurapika right here to kind of determine how things go with everybody here in this room, because just laying out the information right here is still just a massive risk, and we don't even know if he's lying right now. But yeah, telling everybody about what the succession contest is effectively goading them to take down the other princes effectively, but also it's just exposing it to other people. And for all we know, exposing it could end up making things more difficult for the succession contest to end with only one survivor. Now again, this is before Benjamin enacts martial law, so definitely things are going to change right now within the next couple of hours as we most likely cut to other factions in the Black Whale. But this is a very information-based dense chapter with a lot of interesting talking points and massive reveals in terms of the succession contest itself, and Kurapika seemingly lying about Wobble's eligibility in the succession contest. But Queen Oito's reaction at the end of the chapter seems to imply that he might be telling the truth, or she's nervous that the lie will end up being exposed and it'll force people to kill her daughter. Who knows? But you guys let me know in the comment section down below. I know this is a big-ass video to throw in with the return of HunterXHunter. I want to talk about HunterXHunter again, and I like the series, and I want to talk about it as much as I humanly possibly can. And, yeah, it's just, I want to talk about it again. You guys let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. What are your theories, thoughts, speculations? What did I miss in this chapter? Is there a piece of information that I did not catch, or information that I did not bring up in this chapter that would affect my opinion on how things go that we learned in previous chapters that I effectively forgot? Let me know in the comments below, and whatsoever if you haven't already, if you like these videos, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Helps a ton, and that shows that you want to see me make more videos going forward involving HunterXHunter. Now, with all that said and done, hope you all have an awesome day.